Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the biggest, oldest, and most profound questions humanity has ever asked. But here's the twist. We're not going to try to find a simple yes or no answer. Instead, we're going to explore how to even think about the question itself. Does God exist? It's a question that has sparked endless debate. So instead of getting caught in the crossfire, we're going to unpack three completely different ways of looking at it, all drawn from a really fascinating recent discussion. First, we'll walk the path of pure logic. Then, we'll look at it through the lens of human experience. And finally, we'll explore a philosophical approach that basically questions the question itself. Ready? Let's get into it. All right, our first perspective tries to tackle this massive question using nothing but cold, hard reason. This argument comes to us from Islamic scholar Mufti Shamil Nadwi. So to kick things off, Mufti Nadwi sets some ground rules for the debate. He says, look, science is out. Why? Because science deals with the physical world, and God, by definition, is considered non-physical. So it's like using a ruler to measure temperature. It's just the wrong tool. And religious scriptures? Well, they're out too, because they're not a common starting point for everyone. So what does that leave us with? Just one thing: pure, universal logic. Now, to follow this line of reasoning, we have to get our heads around a key concept, a contingent being. It sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It's anything that depends on other things to exist. You depend on your parents, a plant depends on sun and water, an island depends on the seafloor. The key idea is that these things could have not existed. And on the flip side of that, you have the idea of a necessary being. This is something completely different. It's something that must exist. It doesn't depend on anything else, and its non-existence is, well, it's just impossible. It's the ultimate source, the buck stops here reality. Okay, so the argument starts with a pretty straightforward observation, something you can see just by looking around. Our universe is basically a giant collection of these contingent things. Everything we see, from a star to a speck of dust, depends on something else for its existence. And it just makes sense, right? If something is contingent, if it didn't have to exist, then it must have a cause that brought it into being. Things don't just pop into existence out of absolutely nothing for no reason. But here's where it gets really tricky. That chain of causes, this happened because of that, which happened because of that, it can't just go back forever. Think about it. If the chain of causes was infinite, nothing would have ever gotten started in the first place. It's like an endless line of dominoes with no first domino to tip over and start the chain reaction. So, what does all this mean? It means that logically, the chain has to stop somewhere. There must be a first cause, something that wasn't itself caused by anything before it, an uncaused cause. And this, the argument concludes, is the necessary being. This is God. Okay, so that's the argument from pure logic. It's clean, it's elegant, but life isn't lived in a vacuum of pure logic, is it? And that brings us to our second perspective. Poet and atheist Javed Akhtar offers a powerful rebuttal, one that's rooted not in abstract ideas, but in human history and real-world suffering. Akhtar basically says, forget abstract logic for a second and just look at our own history. He calls it a graveyard of gods. Think about it. Powerful deities like Ra, Zeus, Jupiter. These weren't just stories. People believed in them with absolute conviction. And today, they're myths. It seems the gods people believe in have a habit of changing over time. Now, this next point is absolutely crucial to his argument. He draws a really sharp line in the sand between two words we often use interchangeably: belief and faith. He says belief is based on evidence and reason, like you believe the North Pole exists because of data and testimony. But faith, he argues, is what religion demands: belief without evidence, proof, or logic. And that leads to his most potent and honestly most gut-wrenching challenge. It's famously known as the problem of evil. As his quote so powerfully states, if there really is an all-powerful, all-knowing, and just God, how can such unimaginable and undeserved suffering exist in the world? For Akhtar, the harsh reality of suffering makes the idea of a good and powerful God, well, impossible to respect or accept. So you see where we are, right? We're at this classic philosophical deadlock. We have two very compelling but completely opposite conclusions. One is built on the clean lines of abstract logic, and the other is built on the messy, painful reality of lived experience. In one corner, you've got this pure, dispassionate, logical conclusion, the idea that the very structure of reality itself seems to demand a first cause. And in the other corner, you have this raw, powerful critique that's grounded in the injustice we see all around us. The argument that ideas like divine justice feel like human inventions we created to cope with a world that is, by its nature, unjust. So it feels like we're stuck, an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. But what if we've been asking the wrong question this whole time? What if the error isn't in the answers, but in the question itself? This is where our third perspective, from philosopher Acharya Prashant, comes in and completely reframes the entire discussion. This final lens is a total game changer. It moves us away from trying to prove or disprove anything. Instead, it asks us to deconstruct the very language we're using to ask the question in the first place. Okay, stay with me here because this is fascinating. Prashant points out something fundamental about our language. When we say something exists, like this mug on my desk, what's actually happening? I, the human subject, am acting as the judge. My senses confirm the mug is there. In that relationship, the one doing the perceiving, the subject, is always higher than the object being perceived. And right there, that's the central contradiction. God, by definition, is considered the highest, the ultimate reality. So how can we, as a lower subject, presume to pass judgment on whether the highest even exists? It's like we're trying to take this ultimate reality and shrink it down into a simple object that our limited senses can measure and judge. To ask, does God exist, is what philosophers call a category error. It's just a fundamental mismatch. It's like asking, what color is the number 7? Or, what does happiness weigh? You're applying a category, existence, which we use for objects, to something that by its very definition isn't supposed to be an object at all. You're using the wrong tool for the job. You know, this profound idea was captured centuries ago by the mystic poet Kabir, who wrote, "If I say he is not, but it cannot be said that he is not." Think about that. From this perspective, to say God is reduces the ultimate reality to just another object, but to say God is not is also a limited judgment made by our limited minds. So this final view doesn't give us a neat answer. Instead, it deepens the entire inquiry, leaving us to wonder not if God exists, but what it truly means to even ask the question in the first place.